Last night's strike was a massive show of force, but what came after that hit even harder. As the media scrambled to spin a false narrative, Marco Rubio stepped in and obliterated it live on television. He exposed just how out of touch and dangerously naive their take on Iran really is. Now, before we dive into his fiery exchange, here's a quick look at Operation Midnight Hammer, the mission that set this all off.
At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy. The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. The remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPs dropped against 2 nuclear target areas. Initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. Our forces remain on high alert and are fully postured to respond to any Iranian retaliation or proxy attacks, which would be an incredibly poor choice.
And some good news. After 36 hours in the air, the B-2 Spirits that struck Iran, they are now back home safely in Missouri. These pilots were unbelievable. They remained invisible throughout almost the entire mission. And this was carefully planned. It was a sharp contrast to the chaos of the previous administration, thankfully. Here's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth praising his team and reminding the world, America is back.
This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called. It took a great deal of precision. It involved misdirection and the highest of operational security. Our B-2s went in and out of downtown Tehran, of these nuclear sites, in and out and back without the world knowing at all. In that way, it was historic. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war. But let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word.
Yes, he does. President Trump made that very clear in his address last night, that it is now up to Iran whether or not they want peace or more destruction.
Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes.
And according to Marco Rubio this morning, the door to diplomacy, it's still open, but this time, it's on our terms.
President Trump did the world a favor last night, and now Iran should sort of wake up, the Iranian regime should wake up and say, okay, if we really want nuclear energy in our country, there's a way to do it. That offer's still there. We're prepared to talk to them tomorrow.
So whether Iran will crawl to the negotiating table after last night's beatdown, that remains to be seen. We will keep you posted. Now, before we get to the absolute smackdown Marco Rubio delivered to the media, let's take a second to appreciate something just as impressive. Pete Hegseth, he ran this entire mission under the radar in a town where we know just about everything leaks. Watch this.
This is an operation in the last 18 years since I've been at the Pentagon. I've never seen such operational security. There was nobody speaking about this, any of the preparations. There was a complete lockdown, almost a blackout of information for the last few days. I'm sitting here in the Pentagon right now. I can tell you the hallways are empty, and all of the information is coming right now out of the White House. That is a significant achievement because there were no leaks about the timing.
And of course, when the operation is a total success, the media has to scramble and find something that they can complain about. This time, they've landed on 2 very weak arguments. 1, that Congress didn't approve the strike, and 2, that Iran hadn't yet given a direct order to launch the nuke. Let's start with Congress. I'm going to show you how the left is trying to spin this one, and then I'll break it all down for you on the other side. Watch this.
What will be critical in the weeks to come is Congress must see the underlying intelligence about how they were in direct threat and how the U.S. needed to respond without congressional approval. But as of right now, I have not seen that.
You're arguing that after 46 years of the Iranian regime killing Americans, threatening Americans, saying over and over and over again, death to America, that maybe they were just didn't mean it, that they're fiery but mostly peaceful Iranian butchers? I mean, I don't understand. This is a righteous strike.
Well, but what you had,
that's not exactly the.
Well, you also had this mix. You also had a clear opportunity where American troops were going to be the least amount of danger for us to carry out a successful attack. So you have the combination, of, as Scott said, of a direct threat on the part of the Iran regime, very close to having a weaponized nuclear capability. To take that off the table brings greater peace and security to our troops deployed and to Americans here at home.
AOC clearly needs to be educated after writing this. Quote, the president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. There's that I word they love so much. The left, they have conveniently forgotten some very important facts because the commander-in-chief absolutely does have the constitutional authority to take limited military action without waiting for Congress, especially in the face of an imminent threat. In fact, waiting for Congress to approve an operation, therefore delaying it, could cost lives, which is why we have the War Powers Resolution. The presidents, they can act immediately, and they just have to notify Congress within 48 hours. Presidents from both parties, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, they have all exercised this power. And here are some examples. Bill Clinton did it in 1998 over a 4-day bombing campaign against Iraqi military infrastructure for failing to comply with UN weapons inspections. Then, Barack Obama did the same with Libya and Syria. He launched airstrikes as part of a NATO campaign against Gaddafi's forces, citing humanitarian concerns and regional stability. Congress was notified, but they weren't asked for approval. Obama also ordered airstrikes against ISIS without congressional authorization. Then Joe Biden in 2021, he ordered an airstrike on Iranian-backed militia infrastructure in Syria. This was in retaliation for rocket attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq. This wasn't another Jimmy Carter disaster in the middle of a desert or Joe Biden's humiliating retreat from Afghanistan. This was a flawlessly executed mission. And the proof? The media is grasping at straws. Their biggest complaints? Over on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan argued that Iran's supreme leader hadn't personally said fire. And that's when Marco Rubio stepped in and absolutely dismantled her argument. Watch this.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the supreme leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have
that is the key point in
weapon.
U.S. intelligence assessment. You know
no,
that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had not been made.
I know that better than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But I'm asking you whether the order was given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. Why would you bury things in a mountain, 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons. Because they can quickly make it 90. They have all the elements. They have. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No. They're trying to build an ICBM.
No, but that's a question. That's a question of intent. And you know, in the intelligence assessment, that it was that Iran wanted to be a threshold state and use this leverage. I'm talking about the public March assessment, and that's why I was asking you if you know something more from March.
But that's also an inaccurate representation of it. That's an accurate representation of it. That's not how intelligence is read. That's not how intelligence is used.
Rubio hit the nail on the head here. The media acts like we need a signed, sealed, and delivered order from the Ayatollah himself before taking action. Someone needs to tell the media that is not how national security works. I mean, we've already seen the deadly consequences of a weak president like Joe Biden reacting after the fact instead of stopping threats before they explode. And for anyone questioning whether the United States had good reason for this attack, let me remind you of the 350 attacks Iran waged on our troops that were in Iraq and Syria while Joe Biden was in office, most of which went unanswered. Iran has been at war with America for years, and now we finally have a president willing to shut them down. Here's Rubio's final thoughts with Brennan over at CBS.
Here's what the whole world knows. Now, forget about intelligence. What the IAEA knows. They are enriching uranium well beyond anything you need for a civil nuclear program. So why would you enrich uranium at 60%? Right. If you don't intend to one day use it to take it to 90 and build a weapon. Right. Why are you developing ICBMs? Why do you have 8,000 short-range missiles and 2,000 to 3,000 long mid-range missiles that you continue to develop? Why do you do all these things? They have everything they need for a nuclear weapon. They have the delivery mechanisms. They have the enrichment capability. They have the highly enriched uranium that is stored. Yes. That's all we need to see. Right. Well, especially in the hands of a regime that's already involved in terrorism and proxies and all kinds of things around. They are the source of all this stability
and no one's disputing that. I'm not doing that here. And they were censured at the IAEA for that enrichment and for violating their non-proliferation agreements. I was simply asking if we had intelligence that there was an order to weaponize, because you said weaponization ambitions.
Well, we have intelligence that they have everything they need to build a nuclear weapon, and that's more than enough.
And some are now asking, does this mean that we're at war with Iran? Here's how Rubio responded.
Are we now at war with Iran?
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the President of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years. And, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago.
Several countries have come out now and publicly condemned the U.S. for the attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. Pakistan, who just days ago nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, they now come out and say that they condemn the U.S. attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. Latin America, they're doing the same. The Chilean president, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba, they are all calling for peace. However, Rubio says not to be fooled by what these countries are saying out loud, because they're saying something completely different in private.
A bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us. Privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime.
And make no mistake, Iran has spent decades playing games with the world. But the games, they ended last night.
They have played the world for 40-something years with these nuclear talks and this, delaying things. They got a crazy deal out of John Kerry when he was Secretary of State under the Obama administration, where they got billions of dollars. And by the way, agreed to something that allowed them to continue to build their missile capacity and sponsor terrorism. They've been playing the world for 40-something years. They're not going to play President Trump. And they found out last night that when he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. And he doesn't want to do it. It's not his first choice. But it's the only choice. That's the only choice the Iranian regime left us, because they play too many games. They use diplomacy to hide behind and obfuscate and think they can buy themselves time. They think they're cute. They're not cute. And they're not going to get away with this stuff.
This is what decisive action looks like. President Trump, he sent a message last night, one that was loud and clear, not just to Iran, but to every hostile actor watching. You will not outmaneuver the United States, not on President Trump's watch. Now, up next, a verdict was reached in the custody battle over the National Guard. Find out who won. Plus, Democrats have a dangerous new plan for illegal immigrants. I lay it all out for you in the next video. Go ahead and click on it. You see it there on your screen, and I'll see you over there.